Summer in Maine, someplace there must be a fair. Maine's agricultural fairs are traditions in every county. This week, it's the Windsor Fair in Kennebec County. There's a lot to see and do there, and as 207's Don Kerrigan found out, one of the biggest exhibits might be a surprise.
It's one day before the crowd shows up, and the stars of the show arrive at the Windsor Fair. The barns and the livestock shows will draw farm people who understand it all, and the rest of us who just like to watch. The midway for the kids, the horse racing for the grown-ups, all ready to go.
How many visitors typically?
We generally will get about 100 to 125,000 people come through our gates during the week.
Windsor is the second biggest agricultural fair in Maine.
It's all food vendors along here.
And Dan Foster knows this place inside and out. His family has been part of fair leadership his entire life.
Inside this area.
Dan had a concession stand here when he was a kid. Now he helps to manage the fair.
In fact, my wife kind of jokes around that it was in her wedding vows to be part of Windsor Fair.
The cows, the carnival, the trotters, even the food treats are all part of what brings the crowds. But Windsor has something else. Windsor has history.
So yeah, that thin material goes from my working temperature 15 to 1800, depending.
Jan Tricarico's blacksmith shop is just part of it. Because on this corner of the grounds, the Windsor Fair and the Windsor Historical Society have partnered to bring local history to life.
We're looking at approximately a circa 1900 small village. We have the blacksmith shop, a cooper shop where they made barrels, an old family barn that was here in Windsor that's about 220 years old that we moved here. I enjoy it.
Rick Cummings has been helping to put this all together for 30 years. They've collected old buildings from surrounding towns and moved them here, rebuilt as needed, to preserve a bit of what used to be.
And that's what we're trying to do. You know, we want to know, we got to remember where we came from to move forward.
Remembering a time when much of what we needed had to be made by local hands, like Jan, the blacksmith.
You're keeping a piece of Maine history alive here.
Yes, yeah, and doing it all back in the 1800s way. We don't use any power here. We don't stay working until 8 o'clock at night because once it's dark, we're done.
A time when everybody knew you have to strike when the iron's hot. And a time when being on the cutting edge had a very real meaning. The old sawmill was moved here from Albion and rebuilt and is now used again for fair lumber. It also teaches a valuable lesson of the days when many jobs carried some danger.
You can only display so many.
There's even more inside, like a tinsmith shop from Augusta.
So this was somebody's shop.
This was somebody's
just in a
shop.
different place. Wow.
This is pretty much the way it was. They closed up in the early 40s, and we've probably had it since 2000.
Part of a general store from right here in Windsor.
Oh, look at that.
The original counter from Huzzy's General Store, from just down the road.
Wow, okay.
And it runs flawlessly.
And the old Thompson print shop all the way from Brewer, carefully tended by Don Bassett.
This particular machine was built in 1933, but they never changed anything on the patent. And you can see, work on this thing all day.
Over the course of several decades, the history section has become a real attraction, says Dan.
It's really become a big part of what the fair is all about.
And while many historical societies get little public attention, this one draws crowds.
And you get to show this off to everybody else.
Yeah, 100,000 people at your doorstep. It makes it fun, and the kids are amazed, and I like talking to the older folks that remember this life.
Most of us no longer live or work on farms. We're glad some people do, of course, because we depend on farmers, even though there are fewer farms than ever.
This is more important than ever to have to have these fairs as a showcase for agriculture.
The fair may also be a reminder, really, of who we are. And this little history village, if you take a few minutes to look, helps to show how we got here.
Is there something you don't have yet that you'd really like to have here?
I think if we had as a group as a whole that we'd like to have, we're kind of lacking a small church.
So, if you know where there might be a small church that could be moved,
All villages had a church. And
Rick Cummings wants to know.
The Windsor Fair runs through Labor Day. The fairgrounds are just about 15 minutes outside of Augusta with free parking. And as we said, Windsor is the second biggest of Maine's agricultural fairs. The biggest, of course, is Freiburg.